Hello, and welcome to the Women Advancing Life podcast. Here you can listen to the unique stories of the women who make live events a reality. These conversations feature talented professionals such as concert photographers, VIP coordinators, tour managers, and more. I'm your host, Lisa, a live events and touring professional. I strive to help other women who aspire to work in the world of live music. In this week's episode of Women Advancing Live, I talk with VIP tour representative Vivienne Huynh. She's been working in the live event industry for over 4 years and got involved by joining street teams, selling merch, and working as a local assistant. In 2023, she began touring as a VIP representative for VIP Nation and has worked on tours for Suga BTS, Twice, Jonas Brothers, and IVE. Outside of touring, Vivienne also works as the Chief Marketing Officer for Jaded Productions, a resource for aspiring music industry professionals. You can follow her over on Instagram at Vivienne Huynh. Also, make sure to check out Jaded Productions at www.jadedproductions.org. Tune in to learn more about her journey working in live events. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Women Advancing Live. Today I'm joined by Vivienne. Hey Vivienne, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to be here. I love Lisa.
Oh, I love you too. Thanks so much for being here today, for taking the time to come on the podcast. I'm excited to dive in and get to hear from you and learn about your career journey thus far. But before we get to the actual interview questions, I like to start off with a few icebreakers. So it's just going to be a few quick questions. What is a song or artist you have been putting on loop at the moment?
Ooh, 5 Seconds of Summer. I have like weird 5-sauce phases where I don't listen to them at all. And currently I'm in the phase where they're the only people I'm listening to. So right now it's Bad Omens by 5 Seconds of Summer.
Ooh, I love that song. That's such a good song. Okay, next one. What has been one of your favorite concerts? It can be either one that you attended as a fan or worked.
I'll do both. My favorite concert I've ever seen was Ed Sheeran in like 2013. I just think he's such a great live performer and he's one of my favorite people. But my favorite show that I've ever worked or tour that I've ever worked was Suga BTS because he's also a great live performer and he's another favorite human being.
I agree with both of those points. Both are such amazing artists. Also, Suga being your first tour is crazy. The VIP activation and amount of VIPs were insane.
It was a rough one. But a good one.
Definitely a good first one. It's almost like a crash course.
Oh, it definitely was a throw you into the wolves type of tour, but it was a great tour.
All right. Next question. What is something you always have to pack with you for tour? Not like any necessity, like of course you need your clothes or passport.
I have this little Paddington keychain. He's like a little Paddington bear. And I have to bring him with me everywhere, whether I hook him on my suitcase or my backpack. I just toss him in there. But he's always there because he's my little travel buddy.
Oh, you have like a little support buddy with you on tour.
Oh, my little emotional support man, bear.
I think I brought a keychain with me on my first tour. I'm pretty sure it was a Kuromi. But yeah, it was the same thing. I wanted to have a travel buddy with me on tour.
And when I'm at home, he just hangs in my car, so.
All right. Now, to the actual interview. For the first question, I always ask every guest so the listeners can get an overview of who you are, what your experience is. Can you please tell us how you got your start in live events and your journey thus far?
I would say my career journey started back when I started my first fan account in 2013. I feel like you don't really realize what you're doing as marketing until you're older, but that's where I met all the people that I work with now, and having my little fan accounts posting about artist releases, drops, new albums, all that stuff. It allowed me to meet some of my really close friends that were like, hey, why don't you go volunteer in LA to sell merch or to pass out flyers? And I was involved in a lot of street teams back then too that allowed me to just build my network, because I didn't know that like working in the music industry could be full-time, and I just used it as like a source of fun Like, I'm going to work part-time at this venue in LA selling tickets, or I'm going to sell merch whenever somebody emails me. And then when COVID hit and I was about to be a med school student, everything shut down, everything was on Zoom, no idea what to do with my life. And I just went back to my little fangirl cave of hosting and like reconnecting with the people that I've met. And obviously like venues were closed. I couldn't sell tickets. I didn't know what to do. And I met people online that were like, let's just create little online hubs of how to find jobs in the music industry. And that's where I met, I'm in Jaded Productions. It's like a little online class to teach students how to get into the music industry. I met Jade and Joanna, and they introduced me into VIP work. Joanna actually introduced me to my first Live Nation gig for BTS in Las Vegas. And that's where I met you, and I met all these other people that created like a space for me to like actually work a show instead of selling tickets for a show or selling t-shirts outside for a show. And from there, you guys were so sweet and you're like, Viv, there's this gig, Viv, there's a gig in SoCal. And it just kind of had a snowball effect of one show into working a show every week. And that's how I got started.
Dang. And yeah, put some respect on that fan account and all that work. You're totally right when it's like, there's people who get paid to do that kind of work.
Yeah, it's the fangirl to music industry professional pipeline. And I know like so many people that were like, I started posting One Direction edits and now I'm doing their tour marketing, even though they're not existing anymore. But I mean.
Yeah, but yeah, that's so true. And also like street teaming is great for connecting and networking with people. Like that's kind of how I got my start too, is being on street teams and meeting all these people and then connecting with them, and they would share gigs with me. So I love street teams.
It's so fun too because like there's people that share the same interests as you doing free work, but it's fun.
Exactly. It gives you experience. I was so surprised when I found out that BTS was your first ever like VIP gig, because I remember when I met you and I worked with you those 2 weekends, I'm like, this girl's on top of it. She's like got so many shows under her belt, because it's like VIP for BTS is like hundreds of people. So like nothing fazed you. It's like she's been in the trenches before.
I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I had no idea what VIP work was because I've only done like hospitality or like merch and stuff. And then when they said VIP, I was like, I don't know what that means, but it's a gig and it's in Vegas and it's for BTS. So I'm going to take it. And I had so much fun and it was a great time. And I was like, I'm just going to pretend that I know what I'm doing because everybody seems like they know what they're doing. It worked out.
Yeah, it was a solid crew. I loved that.
I loved it so much.
That's actually a good segue into my next question. Like for people who know of what VIP is, but not exactly what it entails, like what is VIP work?
VIP work is fan-facing. It's on the fan-facing side of a tour. We're kind of like, I like to say large-scale event planners because you're working with all the fans that make the show possible and you're trying to give them the experience that they deserve. So it's like, it can include lounge access or meet and greet or early soundcheck access. You give them early merchandise shopping and they get cute little goodie bags that I think like if you're a hardcore fan, like you would enjoy. Sometimes I look at the merch we give out and I'm like, oh, it's so cute. I want to keep it. It's basically just taking care of the fans and making sure that the fan experience is there. Because sometimes I feel like people don't really pay attention to the fans or give them enough credit. We wouldn't have a show without the people there. So that's what VIP is to me. And coming from a fan, like me being a fan personally, it just makes me really happy to be the person providing that experience for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I know. I love working VIP because even if I'm not a fan of the music, like I'm a fan myself, I'm just an artist, so I can relate to them on that level when they get excited. It's like, oh.
Yeah, there's so much passion, and I'm like, oh, you guys are so cute. I love it.
Yeah, and you're totally right that without fans, we wouldn't have any work. There wouldn't be a music industry if there weren't fans.
There wouldn't be nothing.
So yeah, I know. I always like, not many people I've worked with have like made comments, but you know, there's sometimes where you hear someone talk down on fans and I'm like, bro, we would not be here doing our job right now if it wasn't for all these fans out there.
Yeah, and it makes me a little mad when I hear that because I'm like, I get it. Not your vibe. You might not understand why they act the way they do. Sometimes I don't, but they keeping us employed, so I'm gonna keep them happy.
Yep, you're giving them the experience they paid for. So now that you've done all this like VIP work and you like kind of made a name for yourself and it's led you to working as an actual VIP representative on tours, how has transitioning to touring been for you?
At first, it was a little difficult for me. I'm very much like a family-oriented person. I do love my personal time and I do love to travel, and I would set aside dates like, okay, this is the week I'm going to go on vacation. But touring is like you're gone for periods of time. And the hardest part for me to like get my head around is I'm going out into the world and experiencing all these things. And when I come back home, it's like nothing has changed. Everybody's still living their like daily life. And I think also for me, like being the firstborn daughter of like an immigrant family, it's hard because it's like I want my parents to experience these things too, but they can't. So I'm kind of just like sending them pictures and like it makes me a little sad. Like, do you know the TikTok sound where it's like I'm experiencing life while you're experiencing them through my pictures? And I'm like, that's so depressing. But as I got used to it, I kind of realized I was like, it's fine. Like what I'm doing makes me happy. Touring, like I can pack a suitcase in 2 seconds and like be set for a couple months. It's gone a lot easier. I love it so much. And like I found like a really good balance of like, hey mom, I'm here versus like I'll be home in a couple weeks and I'll bring home goodies for you. It's gone a lot easier and I really, really enjoy it.
I relate because I feel like touring, like I love traveling and obviously I love working in concerts. So, it's like 2-for-1 deal, but it's also like hard being away from home. Like when I did my tour, I was like, I'm a lot more homesick than I thought I would be. I miss my dog. I can see how it can be really tough for people who do it year round.
Yeah. Like for me, I've only done K-pop tours and those compared to actual tours aren't that long, like a month, 2 at most. And then I did Jonas Brothers, which was, it felt like never ending, like 4 or 5 months on the road. And that was the longest I've ever been on tour. I went from being like, yeah, this is like fine. Like I'm used to touring. I'm used to the swing of things, but I wasn't used to being gone for like 5 months. And that was like something hard for me because I was like, why do I feel so homesick? I've been doing this for like 2 years now. Like what's going on? I thought it was like, is it time for me to stop being on the road? But touring is like, it hits you like a wave. It's like, I'm having so much fun. And then you're like, I want to go home. And then you're back to like, oh, I love what I do.
Yeah, I feel like there's always going to be something like that with any job you have. And is there like anything that you do on tour, like when you are like feeling homesick or not feeling the best while on the road? Like, is there anything that you do to kind of help with that?
I like to journal, and I've had a journal since I was like 12 years old, but I feel like it helps me to have that little like, okay, I'm going to go into my room and I'm going to play my music and I'm just going to write all my thoughts out on this page so that I don't keep them in my head. And I think that's the best way is to like just have like find an outlet for yourself. Like for me, it's journaling. I do call my family a lot. I remember when I was on, I think it was Twice, Sarah made a comment and I was like, you call your family more than any of us. And I was like, that is true. But it does help me like when I like talk to my mom because I'm like, okay, at least my head's on straight. And sometimes I like to take walks. So I'll just like walk aimlessly for a couple hours and then I'll find my way back to the hotel or Uber back to the hotel if I made it too far. But those are the ways I kind of like cope with when I'm having a little breakdown is like, let's just get some air and breathe.
I love journaling. I don't journal as often, but it definitely helps me whenever I'm like going through a rough patch. And also, I wouldn't call like my parents that often, but I would definitely like check in like anytime I was flying or anything, or like, Mom, I'm about to go on my flight. It's like, Mom, I just landed.
Like just a little update. Just sometimes like I'll send texts like going to the airport, boarding the plane, and you just get no response and you're like, cool, you hate me.
Yes. It's just like, It's radio silence. I'm like, okay, whatever.
It is what it is.
That's true. Okay, well, is there anything that you've experienced working in music that you're like, oh, I never expected this to be this way, or it kind of surprised you?
Yes, I think doing like hospitality, doing merch, doing VIP work, I was mostly surrounded by women that were like my age, like relatively young. And in my brain, I was like, this industry is predominantly women and we're all young. And I was so wrong. Like my first tour where I like actually got to see the entire crew, I was like, there are so many dudes. Like it did take me by surprise just because of like, I feel like I was in a bubble of women in the music industry. Like I was surrounded in a space that was all of like the things that I knew. And then when I got thrown into my first tour and I saw how massive it was and how many people there that were like twice my age still building a stage, I was like, holy crap. Like this is a really big industry and it's not just like young people, because for some reason I was like, music industry is full of young people that know what the trends are, which there are, but I didn't realize how many people that were like a lot older.
Yeah, I feel you, because for me, I started out doing VIP and hospitality for the first few years. I worked events, and switching to production, I went from being surrounded by girls who were all my age in their 20s to being surrounded by all guys who are all older than me. It did take me by surprise too.
Yeah. Being like on K-pop tours where I was surrounded by my VIP girlies, and then I went on Jonas and it was my first long tour and it was my first bus tour and I was the only girl on my bus and I was like, oh, this is awkward. But like the people you meet on the crew are most of the time the sweetest people you ever meet, and like I had the best time on my bus, but it still was like, what? when I first got into it.
Yeah, definitely. And like it might not seem like such a surprising thing. Like, of course, there's also guys in the industry, but it's just that sudden shift from being around all girls to all guys that's like, whoa.
Yeah, no, like I'm sure it's not shocking to like people who are seasoned in the industry, but from someone who like had no idea what I was getting myself into, it definitely was like a big wow factor. And I was like, what? Where do you guys come from?
Yeah. Going back, I know you mentioned all the things you've done, doing like running a fan account and doing street teams and then going into working shows, because I know that you have a degree in psychology, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So at what point did you realize that you can make an actual career working in live events, working in music?
I didn't realize that I could make this a career until 2020 when COVID happened, because my entire life prior to COVID was go to school, get your degree, get your medical degree, get your PhD. And when that was like put on pause, I was just kind of like, what do I do now? And like music and running my fans account and being on the street teams were kind of my source of like happiness and like my little escape from like all of the studies. And so like when COVID hit, I was like, I'm going to hop back into it. And that's when I met more people that were like, this can be a job. And I learned like you don't technically need a degree to work in the music industry. There are so many different, what is the word? Department. There's so many different departments that you can like get into that regardless of the degree you earned, you can find your way and make your way in there. And for me, like psychology is so far from music, but at the same time, it does help me because psychology is basically studying people and you interact with so many people.
I mean, music industry is like a people industry. It's all about networking. And also like, I was the same way growing up. My parents are immigrants, you know, I'm first generation. I was like, okay, I'll go to school, study, go to college, get a degree, do, I don't know, become a doctor, lawyer, whatever, I don't know. I don't think it really hit me either until like COVID times where I learned more about all these people who do this for a living. like, oh, there's tour managers, production managers and stuff that maybe if I actually dedicate more time into working shows seriously, that I could get to that point. But yeah, I think up to that point, I was just like, I'll just grind in school and see what happens. Because my degree's in communications, which is like, I don't know what I was planning on doing, honestly.
She's communicating. It's working. But same, I didn't really start taking it seriously until that BTS gig in Las Vegas. Because up until then, I was like, no, I'm making like $12 an hour selling tickets at a booth. Or I'm getting like maybe twice a month email saying, please come sell merch. And it would be something I did for fun. But then I went to Vegas and I was like, oh, like this is a job. Like you can do this and like make a living out of it. But that's like when it hit me was when I met all of you guys and I was like, you guys are actually pursuing this. And it kind of gave me the same motivation of, okay, this is not just for fun anymore. This is something that I really want to do.
Yeah, it was a side gig for me too for the first years working shows. But I would meet people who were very serious about this line of work. And some of them eventually went on to work full-time in the industry or tour. And I was like, dang, you know what? I could be doing that too.
Yeah. And it scared me a little too because like I'm somebody who really likes stability. So I had like my full-time job, like VIP was a side gig for me, or like music industry was a side gig. And when I heard about the people that are like, oh yeah, I just do a gig like every other day or every weekend and that's their source of income, I was like, how? Like, teach me. But it is like the non-stable part was what scared me about it. But seeing everybody so passionate, it gave me the green light that it's like a safe zone. Like you can do this too.
You hear that, people out there? You can do this.
You can do it.
Now for you being a VIP assistant and now you're touring as a VIP tour rep, what is your responsibilities now? Like being the person in charge of coordinating the VIP programs?
So going from a VIP assistant where you just kind of showed up day of show versus being a tour rep now, like I guess my daily like pre-start of tour would be like reaching out to the venue contacts, advancing, making sure, you know, everything's in place for that when I do arrive on site or at the venue, things will go smoothly. Like if it's a lounge package, it's make sure we have a space for our things to be set up. Or if it's a sound check package, make sure we have like a larger space for our fans to hang out in. And it's just a lot of the planning for VIP is done prior to it. So that day of show, you're kind of just going down the checklist of, okay, this needs to be set at this time. Like make sure the check-in table is ready at noon. All guests should be checked in by 5. They should be ready to head into the venue at 5:30 for either a sound check or just a meet and greet or a lounge hangout session, little party. And you hire your VIP assistants, your locals, and you just make sure that fans are all having a good time. It's like fan service without being the artist. My job is just to make sure that everybody gets what they've paid for, and some I like to just make sure everybody has the best experience. And sometimes things don't go as planned. Sometimes people are unhappy, but you can try your best to fix it. For the most part, it's a pretty simple day as long as you advance it correctly.
Yeah, there's so much pre-planning that goes into it for people in coordinator or manager positions. I think a lot of work is done pre-tour leading up to show day and on show day, making sure everything is being executed and putting out any fires.
Yeah, trying to make sure everything that needs to be done is in that really long first email that I send, and then hopefully whatever they agreed to in my email is happening the day of show.
Advancing correctly is so important.
So important.
That's awesome. I love working VIP to be able to connect with the fans. One of my fondest memories just working shows, I feel like it's always been with a moment I've had with like another fan or helping them in any way. And even though there were some limitations to what I could do to actually assist them, but you know.
Yes. That's also my favorite part is like seeing them like smile and seeing them being so happy. There was like these 2 little sisters on Jonas Brothers, and we did this little giveaway in our lounge where like it would either be like a guitar pick or a drumstick or whatever we were able to give away. And I gave it to these two little sisters and they started crying like happy tears. And it was like the middle of the tour where I'm like, there was like a lull and I was like, this is so long, I'm over it. And then seeing them like happy cry, just holding like a broken drumstick, I was like, oh, okay, this is why I do this. Like, I love that. I love the reactions. It just makes me so happy.
Yeah, I love moments like that where just like it's like such a simple thing. Like it makes their whole freaking day, you know, or even like after that, like it's something that they have forever.
Yeah, like, because I think about it, I'm like, I keep so many mementos in my room. And I'm like, that little thing that I gave them is going to be like hanging in their room. It's like, you played like a little part in somebody's best night of their lives, quote unquote, at the concert.
Yeah, it's a memory-making business.
So fun.
All right. So, what is some advice you would give to others who are looking to work in the live industry, whether it be VIP or just anything in live events?
Everybody says this, but I think it's one of the most true things is networking. Like, all constantly put yourself out there, even if it's in the smallest way. Because I think like networking, people see it as like a business transaction. I want people to think of networking as like making a new friend. It doesn't have to be so how'd you get your job? It can start with oh, you have really cute pants, and build that relationship from there. Like build a rapport. It doesn't matter if you're shy, because when I first started, I hated talking to people. I didn't want to interact with anybody. It made me so anxious. But I learned that a little goes a long way, and networking doesn't have to be this big, scary term that looms over your head. It can just be creating a friendship that somehow will lead you into a possible career. So just don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Whatever gig you're working, whatever volunteer thing you're doing, always try to make friends with the people that you're working with or the people that you come across, because you never know what that person can do for you and what relationship can come out of it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And it's a broken record. Like, people always say to network, but there's different ways to go about networking. And like you said, it shouldn't be just a business transaction where you only reach out when you need something or want something, because it doesn't feel genuine, in my opinion. You gotta put in the effort in developing and maintaining this relationship. Like you said, it's making a friend. And I think that's how I've gotten this far, like slowly but surely establishing an authentic relationship with people.
Exactly. And like people can tell when you're only talking to them for the purpose of you can get me a job. And like maybe, yes, your final goal is to talk to this person because they work at that company and, you know, it's your in. But building a relationship with them without the intention of, oh, they can get me a job, gives you such a stronger foundation of like, okay, maybe you didn't get the job, but you made a friend who could possibly recommend you for something else. Or if something else comes along, you might possibly be the first person they think of versus a straight shot, one path. They can do this for me or they won't at all.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And I feel like another thing with networking too, because there's some people like I talk to constantly, but there's others that I'm like, I haven't talked to them in a little bit. So I feel like checking in every once in a while with people just to kind of see what they're up to.
Definitely. Like, I think keeping in touch and checking up with people is also a really big part of the process of making sure you maintain the relationships. Like, it shouldn't be, I'm only going to talk to you when there's a show. Or, hey, do you know if there's any gigs happening? Like, even if you don't talk to them every day, it still is nice to be like, how have you been? I'm going to be in the city. Like, we should hang out. Like, just keeping the relationship genuine and authentic rather than see you at the next gig.
Yeah, exactly. Networking 101.
Networking 101, besties. It's your best friend in this industry for sure.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Vivienne, for everything that you shared, all your nuggets of knowledge, and just letting us know more about you and your journey.
I had a really fun time. Thank you for having me. This was a great conversation, and I'll see you again outside of this podcast.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much again for coming on, and yeah, we'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Women Advancing Live. If you enjoyed the conversation, make sure to rate the podcast and give us a follow. You can also check out our Instagram at Women Advancing Live and our website www.womenadvancing.live.com to stay updated with all news and content. You can head over to Instagram to connect with Vivienne at Vivienne Huynh, and also make sure to check out Jaded Productions, which is an awesome resource for learning about the music industry. Their website is www.jadedproductions.org. That's it for today. See you down the road.